I'm investigative journalist Molly Barrows. For years, I've covered the stories that made headlines in Northwest Florida and all along the Gulf Coast. Murders, missing persons, and mysteries of all kinds. These cases are far from over for many victims because the full story has yet to surface. Join me for Gulf Coast Confidential, where I dive into the saltier side of the South and expose the lies, greed, and corruption that often weighs down the truth. It's time to turn the tide and get a shot at justice. Hey everybody, I'm Molly Barrows, and welcome to the Gulf Coast Confidential podcast, where we cover some crazy stuff around here, y'all. You never know what is going to bubble up in Northwest Florida. I've been reporting on this area for over 20 years, and there's some crazy stuff that happens here and all around us, all over the country, all over the world. We try to touch on some of these crazy cases here on Gulf Coast Confidential. Pam Hill joining me as always to talk about it. Pam has experienced violent crime in her own family. She's also a pharmacist and a victim's advocate. That's important to us, isn't it, Pam?
It is. And we typically try to show from the victim's point of view or the victim's family a point of view, because sometimes we get caught up in these cases and it's the case of so-and-so.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And those who watch this podcast are familiar with Pam's story, but if you're not, check out episodes Mommy Killer 1 and Mommy Killer 2, also Confessions in the Field House, as well as Murder and Madness. They really will give you all the backstory and bring you up to speed on what's happening with Pam's nephew, Brandon Aydelott. He was found not guilty by reason of insanity for violently killing his mother. He stabbed her, he beat her, and he stomped on her on Christmas Eve of 2013 in the doorway of her home. She had no idea it was coming. She knew he was having some mental illness problems. She'd been trying to get those addressed. She and his father, they were divorced. They were not on the same page. He was living with his dad. Shows up on her doorstep on Christmas Eve, hiding a knife up the sleeve of his shirt, and he stabs her as soon as she opens the door. Very violent scene. You can actually check out my website, mollybarrows.com, and you can see some of the pictures from the crime scene as well as a lot of the documentation from that case. And the part of the reason I'm going into a lot of detail about this is because we are about to revisit a case that just happened here in Florida that is eerily, horrifyingly similar to what Brandon Aydelott did to his own mother, Sharon Aydelott. Remember, he stomped her face. He used multiple knives in this attack. He also used a baseball bat in this attack on his mom. She had broken knife blades in her eye socket as well as in her skull. And this young man that we're about to talk about also showed up, also was smart like Brandon, a pre-med student at the University of Florida, also killed his mother right in her home, attacked her as soon as she opened the door. There's even ring camera video of him hiding a knife behind his back in order to show up at her doorstep. And just like Sharon Aydelott, this is a mother who loved her son, who adored her son, who gave him every opportunity to succeed and do well in life. She was excited to see her son. She opened the door to him with loving open arms while she was on the phone with her own brother, and her own brother had to also hear his nephew kill his sister. And so I saw this story come across the news feed earlier this week. I sent it to Pam, and we were both just horrified at the similarities.
Oh, gosh. I was gobsmacked, just incredulously stunned. My brain went numb because, you know, we're in the process of the Chattahoochee Hospital letting my nephew out. And he said he would kill again. So when someone kills, this perfect formula of these young men, they're not boys.
Right. Brandon was, what, 1 month away, 2 months away? His birthday's in February. He killed Sharon in December. He was just a couple of months away from becoming 18.
Right. And I tell people, think about this. We go to ball games. All of us have been to high school ball games. We've been to college football games. We've seen regular NFL football games. These young men, they have pumped themselves up. They work out. They eat right. And their mother and daddy, you know, provide all that for them. They're fixing to go into their careers. They're driving. They want to vote. They're moving that way toward adulthood. So it's not like these are little 8-year-old boys.
Right.
You know, so let's call them what they are. They are young men, and these are their sweet mothers. These aren't mothers that beat them. These aren't mothers that didn't take care of them. These are mothers that, you know, when you love somebody, you love them. But when you love, adore, and cherish somebody, That's indescribable, except the way it feels. So both of these, Sharon, my sister Sharon, and Elvia Espinoza, she was a loving mom. Yeah, she had called her son at University of Florida. His name is Emmanuel Espinoza. But she had called him, said, Manny, I haven't seen you in a while. Can I come down and visit? He said, you know what, Mom? We're having something for Grandpa this weekend up where she lives in Frostproof, Florida. And he said, I'll just stay with you when I come home. So she was excited.
I know, it just breaks my heart. And this is why we're calling this episode Mom Killer 2.0. Florida pre-med student stabs mom to death. Just when you think what happened to you is so horrible and unimaginable that, you know, other people have certainly experienced violent crime, but to have it almost replicated down to the details.
Oh, my gosh.
He stabbed her 70 times. So
oh, my gosh.
then it becomes, and I know you and I both went there because of your experience with Brandon being found not guilty by reason of insanity. You know, this family probably has no idea what's in store for them, what's next. And they're also torn because this is also a family member.
Right.
This isn't just some stranger that came out of nowhere and for some, you know, undecipherable reason decided to take a knife and kill a complete stranger. This was her own son. This was a beloved member of the family, somebody they were proud of. He was a pre-med student at the University of Florida. So now it becomes, is he pre-medical or is this going to be premeditated?
No.
Was the pre-med student premeditating murder on his mother? Or is he also going to claim, oh, voices told me to do
Well,
it?
probably there's a little bit of both because he's already started I knew where to stab her for max effect because of my biology classes. He's already said that. He's already admitted to killing her. No, this sweet family has no idea what's in charge for them. I reached out to a reporter already and sent them a note that said, please have them get in touch with me or tell me, and I can, because I was on my knees throwing up in the street, begging God, please tell me what to do. I actually just said, what in your name good could come out of this? Because we've been taught all things work together for good. And that very moment, I couldn't see anything. And then for years, I looked for someone to understand my feelings or validate me or not treat me like a weirdo or something. When you're in grief, people treat you or say you acting weird. It's not weird. That is love with nowhere to go. That is basically your feelings where there was a lot of grief. There's a lot of love, you know, back and forth. I've learned so much about grief. I've been a grief facilitator at my church, and I've learned that every experience is different, but the main experience is I am hurting.
Yes, I know.
Let's just don't even make people have to explain that to people. But with them down there, this just happened on April 6th.
Yes.
So that was just a few days ago. They just buried her or had her funeral a few days ago. So they are they're in what's called acute grief. You know, a traumatic grief.
Right. And I imagine pretty numb and shocked as well still. It's got to not seem real.
No,
probably.
I'm sure. And then I think about, you know, I had gotten a phone call about Sharon. A basic neighbor said, Pam, don't say anything. Sharon's dead and Brandon killed her.
Yeah, that's a horrible person to do something like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I still remember that.
That's not concern and care and love for you or the situation. That's like, ooh, let me be the one to tell first.
And she wasn't even in town.
Yeah, that's
in Colorado. So also every time I walk past a chair in my room where I remember where that happened, I relive that because was
where
so
you
traumatic.
were when that happened.
Right. And then, but now I think about her brother, Elvia's brother. She was on the phone chatting with him. Oh, Manny's here. Manny's here. You know, she'll let me get the door. So she gets the door while she's on the phone with her brother. And she hears like, stop, Manny, you know, stop. And over and over and over. And it is reported, and this is remarkable to me, yet it seems cold-blooded. It was silent. Manny was silent because he was busy. Let's just think about this. Doing anything, and I don't like to make this movement, but I'm going to make it just to show people. Let's just say you take a knife. I don't like to see people do this either or do this. It does something to me.
Sure.
But you take a knife, and we're talking about butcher knives, and you just say 1, 2, 3. Okay, 70 times on your mother in her flesh. Like with my sister, almost decapitated her. Now, who in the world and what mental health institutions are going to say, they ready to come back out? But that's what they're going to say 10 years from now with the Emmanuel or Manny.
If he gets found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Which is what I fear is going to happen. That's why I want to talk to that family. And like what I've learned, this is what I've prayed God would put me on this earth for at this moment in my life. The other part of my life, I basically, kind of wanted to just help kids learn how to swim or something like that. It wasn't anything that was major.
Right.
But I want people to know when something this horrible happens to you, you don't know what to do. But you have to go to other people that have been through it that can say, yeah, that hurt like nobody's business. Please don't make the same mistake I made.
Right. And advocate for yourself because the justice system is not necessarily for the victim or for the perpetrator in that regard. They are just checking boxes. They're abiding by the law, and the law doesn't always, it's sometimes open for interpretation.
Right. And it's emotionless. You look in there, and a lot of times I look at people and I'm like, and my sister often says this, my sister Tricia goes, when we're dealing with people, she may just be a stack of papers to you, but that's my baby sister.
Right. And in the case of Brandon Aydelott, he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. But, as if you listen to some of these other episodes, then you'll know that Pam and I have looked into this for many years and researched a lot of it. Brandon was also actively using drugs. Even if he was self-medicating because he was showing signs of mental illness, it was still a choice. His father actively fought against Sharon's attempts to get him mental health treatment, even checking him out within 48 hours of going into a rehabilitation facility after they had a family intervention over his drug use because they believed he was buying and selling through texts on his phone. They could see that he was buying and selling drugs, including spice.
Right.
So it's that synthetic marijuana that kind of makes you go crazy.
Yeah, the Kush, the mango Kush, the Thunderberry Kush. He even would get you your right flavor in there. There's no, he was maybe doing it. He was doing it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And he was doing
I didn't see it. You did.
Yeah,
so I'm just qualifying it. But yes.
So it's my phone. I'm paying for it and I saw it. So opioids, and you put the benzos in there and you put the synthetic stuff in there, just like right now with fentanyl. What a gamble. I mean, people you're not so bright. I don't care if you're 16, 17, 18, 30, 50, whatever, where you don't want to feel anything, but yet you're willing to take a drug that may be fentanyl laced or spice laced or something, and your brain goes to pudding, with the spice, or with fentanyl, you just
brain
gone.
goes out.
That's right.
That's
your
it.
Brain dead.
Sorry, can't beat your heart anymore.
Right. And then
we're done.
Other people around don't know what you're doing. And it doesn't just have to be opioids with that. It can be the benzos that are laced with the fentanyl. Because these drug dealers, people go, well, why would they kill their customers? That's a normal
because
question.
It's not an exact science as to how they're using fentanyl in these drugs that they're making.
They're also giving you a bang for your buck.
Yeah.
If you go to a drug dealer and you're like, man, that felt good, or I didn't feel anything or whatever.
Right.
You're like, they got some good stuff. You're going to go back there till you die, I guess.
Yeah.
It's also sad. People in their right mind don't kill people.
Right. Whatever the reason. And that's the reason that we know about with Brandon. At least that's what he claimed. That's what the court system found with their experts. And more experts have now stepped forward to say he no longer meets the criteria to stay at Chattahoochee, Florida State Hospital for the criminally insane, and is potentially being recommended for release to a group home. And it looks like they're talking about what they call a step-down program. Basically, there's levels within it where you can go in and have to be monitored, make sure you're taking your meds, but you get a little bit more freedom as you earn it. So that's what we know about Brandon Aydelott's case. This that just happened on April 6th that we're talking about with the Espinozas, it's going to there's still information that's coming forward, still information that's coming to light. What we do know is that, most college students, when they come home to see their mom, they're bringing their laundry. This young man brought a knife, and of course she was happy to see him, but what we don't know is why he brought that knife. What he has told police in the area is that his mom was getting on his nerves.
Yeah.
So in some ways, that sounds familiar to Brandon Aydelott. This is why I think we feel like there's probably going to potentially be some sort of, not guilty by reason of insanity defense, because there was a coldness and a calculatedness and a deliberate, she's got on my nerves. I'm grabbing a knife. I'm going to drive down there and talk to her. You can see on the Ring camera video, again, him holding that knife behind his back as he's waiting for her to come to the door. So when you have that sort of cold, calculated justification. There's no remorse. There's no, oh my God, what have I done? No sudden passion, if you will. Going back to another episode that we did on a wife that was basically convicted of murdering her husband because she caught him with his mistress, but she was given a lighter sentence, only 2 years, 24 months essentially in prison because the jury understood that she had sudden passion. This is not a case of sudden passion. This is a case of a young man who deliberately took a knife, whatever his motivation, whether he was listening to his own voices in his head to tell him to do this, or he just truly was just annoyed with his mom, or potentially there is some sort of mental illness. We do know that he made the choice to bring that knife, to drive down there. He told her he was coming. She was expecting him. And as soon as she opened the door, he attacked her and her brother heard it all.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And, I can only imagine how he feels too. But they said that he had his earbuds in and he was blasting Jay-Z and Kanye's No Church in the Wild or some song like that I'm doing some research to see what that's about, because then they said he was blasting it, just playing it over.
That's
and
what
over
Brandon
and over.
told me after he slaughtered Sharon. He said he, went to a friend's house because he wanted to kill all people with brown eyes, and this friend had brown eyes, and he went to their house, but fortunately they weren't home. Then he went to the Winn-Dixie parking lot, not far from where the apartment that he shared with his dad, in between that apartment and his mom's house, where he just left her body in the doorway in a pool of blood. And he was in the parking lot at Winn-Dixie, sitting in his car, smoking weed out of a homemade bong, which was like a little aluminum can.
Mountain Dew can.
And he said he was rocking out, that he was listening to loud rock music on the way over. He listened to loud rock music on the way. And he was like, and I said, well, how did you feel? And he goes, well, I felt pretty good. And he later told the investigators, I feel like I did the right thing by killing my mom. So I'm going to be interested to hear what Manny had to say to investigators.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to hear what he had to say. And I think with all that, Manny drove 160 miles from Gainesville to Frostproof to do that. Brandon rode on Highway 98. I went from where he used to live to Sharon's house. He had to navigate 98 over in Gulf Breeze, which is really hard to do. He had to make a left turn. My nephew...
3 different lights.
Yeah, exactly. My nephew put a big old butcher knife right up his hoodie, went up there to the door, and he said the second she opened the door, I just started stabbing her. That's exactly what Manny did. Now, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of people saying not guilty by reason of insanity. This is pure evil. You are guilty by pure evil. And my next thing is to get with legislators and let them know not guilty by reason of insanity is the most disrespectful thing you can do to a family, especially if this person said, I'm guilty, I did it, and bragged about it. My nephew, he said, I killed Sharon Hill. That's her maiden name. His dad had programmed so much voices in his head, he went ahead and obeyed those. So he chooses what he obeys. He's not insane. He's brilliant.
He basically embraced the voices in his head as opposed to trying to do anything about them. And again, we've talked about this in other episodes. I'm all for people that change. I'm all for mental health. I certainly understand that people do make bad decisions when they're struggling, when they're hurting, when they are suffering from delusional behavior, whether it's self-induced because they've taken drugs or it's something that they completely have no control over. So much of it's subjective. And we don't really know. So we have to rely on these experts. But when these experts are part of a system that doesn't really seem to be after the truth either, they're just after whatever laws that they can prove, then you're sort of left wondering, well, what is justice? Is my loved one really going to be remembered? Are they really going to be, I'm sorry this person was crazy and that they did what they did, but that still doesn't make up. And this not guilty by reason of insanity doesn't really give the option for the state to hold somebody accountable because in the eyes of the law, they're not guilty. And then along those lines too, then if we're going to start saying people are crazy for doing something, well, then you got to be crazy to rob a bank because you're a drug addict. You got to be crazy to hurt your own child, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse. You can apply mental illness to any crime because people all suffer from some sort of mental illness, whether it's something as mild as common everyday depression, if you will, if there is such a thing. But I think we've all suffered or experienced depression or experienced, whatever the case may be, mental illness affects a lot of different people. We just don't all take it to the level of committing a crime over it. And if you're going to pick and choose who gets to be exonerated because of mental illness, to me, that's where it just gets into a gray zone that's just not fair to the victim.
Well, it's very subjective. And I believe, let's just call them, they're not expert anythings. They're not expert witnesses. They are hired guns. They're paid to say what I want you to say,
Right.
for the most part. And after a while, been in this system for 10 years, I'm not impressed with it. I'm just really not, because it's all like an excuse like this, that, and the other. Who in God's name is going to say they killed somebody and we get to use, and I told you I killed them. I get to say I'm not guilty. I may be insane. So let's say it right. You are guilty by reason of insanity. Let's quit this bullshit, because that is exactly what that is. To say, oh, we just decided you're not guilty. And the one bunch of people that I want getting out at all, I don't care what happens. I don't care if you've done every good thing in the world. If you murder someone, you need to stay in jail for life in prison. I don't care. I don't really care what anybody else says. That's how I feel. Because after a while, it's very disrespectful to the family. Now, if you're going to plead guilty, my nephew's already promised to kill again. He's already told us who he's going to kill, our family. There's 3 boys in Gulf Breeze he's going to kill, and everybody with brown eyes.
But now he's changed his mind, and apparently that's no longer an issue.
Well, it is an issue.
But and that's my point. Like, again, and we talked about this in the other case as well, the one with the little boy that was killed, Derek Roby. And we talked about that, because that young man was 13 years old when he killed that 4-year-old boy. Now he's already out of prison, saying that he's a changed person. I'm all for rehabilitation. I'm all for change, but it doesn't take away the heinous thing that you did. And I think you're right. In some cases, there just needs to be accountability, regardless of the reason.
Yeah. Well, let's look at this. Here's Manny. Let's talk about Elvia Espinoza. This poor lady. I cannot say her name enough.
Just a beautiful young woman, too.
And I can't. And she was 46. My sister was 48. Brandon was 17 and 11 months. Manny's probably a sophomore. And he was the valedictorian at his class. And let me tell you one thing, when they start talking about all this stuff about let them out, even my nephew Brandon, you wouldn't believe how many people contact me and go, I knew him. He was sneaky. He was brilliant. And he needs to stay right where he is. These are his 24, 27-year-old friends, and people that were around him. The system, and who's going to pay the price? I don't like thinking of the courthouse as Wind Creek Casino. We got a huge gamble here, but you're not the chips on the table. We are, So until you're willing, do you want Brandon living next to you and your 17-year-old girl, or your 18-year-old girl, or your 12-year-old niece? I mean, do you?
No, of course not.
So, I mean, I'm talking.
Yeah. No. I was just thinking, if I'm that person.
Yeah. I'm talking about.
No, I knew you didn't mean me, but just an average person would not want that.
No, and especially when they told you they're already going to kill, and they did it.
Right.
Brandon was so heinous in killing Sharon, and we're going to find that out about Manny, too. Let's just think about this.
Oh, she tried to get away from him, from what I read. She was crawling down the hall.
And he didn't. And you know what? When he cut himself in the fracas, he said he's up there washing his hands like my nephew did, just taking over the house. I'm going to
Brandon went through several rooms.
Yeah.
He washed his hands in his mama's bathroom and the master bath. He also went to the kitchen multiple times. They found blood throughout the house, because it was almost like walking through, like, this is my house.
Yeah, because he already told her, you already threw all the men out of here, just like that. That's his daddy talk. But anyway, all that. Then he went to the refrigerator and served himself a big old Sprite.
Right, which was only there because he was the only one that likes Sprites. So she put that in there.
So,
for
I mean,
him.
all this stuff, I'm so tired of it. And I don't mean to be ugly acting or whatever. I'm just sick of it. Manny goes, Elvia's son, Manny, that stabbed her while she's crawling away.
The youngest of her 3 sons, too. So he's now robbed his brothers of their money.
Yeah, exactly. He goes up there to wash his hands, and he literally is thinking and going to petition his mama, I need a Band-Aid and some Neosporin. Oh, she's dead. This is what this MFer did.
I believe it.
That's how they do. So Brandon and this boy, cookie cutter. I've had plenty of women tell me, when my son bowed up on me, I thought I was going to be the next Sharon Aydelott.
Because that's exactly what Brandon did to her. In the months leading up to him killing her, he also was pushing against her. That's why he moved out, because she wanted him to quit using and selling drugs, especially with his 10-year-old sister there in the house. She didn't want that in her house. But his daddy apparently did not set the kind of rules. He may have set rules, but I think that he and Sharon were certainly not on the same page. So then you got Brandon going to live with his dad. And I've talked to other members of your family who were there when he pushed on her. Like they said, one time she was in the refrigerator, bending over, getting something out, and he walked by and just shoved her into the refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know, and just because he was tall, he was known for swinging for the fence. He was a good pitcher. He was a good baseball player. He was an all-around good athlete. Used to, you know, well over like 220 pounds, 6'2".
Then he got down to 195 because like Sharon worked so hard to get him the best of everything. The best food, obviously, people want to give their family the best food. That's not
But he was
necessarily a
into
big
his
deal.
body because he wanted it. He was hoping to get a scholarship for baseball.
And he was being scouted by Alabama, University of Alabama. But she got him the best proteins, the best protein bars, the best sleeves and everything, the pitching because he's a pitcher.
Yeah.
She didn't want his joints to hurt. She helped him. She loved him so much. If he wanted his, it's so crazy. If he wanted his eyebrows done or his nails done or his hair, you know, just she helped keep him so just where he just was taken care of.
Pampered,
yeah,
really.
pampered and loved.
Adored.
And he would come sit right next to her. But see, my nephew, he got a lot of bad info in his ear from his daddy, but he had to be able to receive it or want to. So, but this Elvia thing, you just don't know how this has triggered me. And I'm sure it's triggered my sister too. But I read about this stuff because this is what I do in life now. I am going to keep raising hell until someone listens to me. Because if we have not guilty by reason of insanity, which is a lie, it's all a lie, except for they're insane. What's the big deal about putting the truth in here if we're in a court of law? You killed her. Even the judge said that Brandon killed her, and Brandon said he killed her. Now we're down in Frostproof. Emmanuel said, I killed her. I killed her. She got on my nerves. So we have to be careful because any other boys, any other young men or young women or whatever, and there's women that are girls that have killed their parents too. And we're going to talk about those cases as well because some of this stuff literally makes me sick to think about it, research it and stuff. But you know what? That's a pain that I'm willing to endure because we have to talk about this. I was so Pollyanna. My family didn't even say words like murder, you know, or stuff like that. And my mother didn't allow all this like, you know, all that stuff. My family was Pollyanna. And when this happened to us, I was like, it's a world we didn't know, but we're in it now.
Right. And is that the advice that you would give to her family?
I would advise her family. Right now, they can't do anything. They're so numb. The advice I would give them right now, hold so close to each other, love on each other so much. Everything that you know about Elvia, share it with each other. You're going to cry. You're going to feel like you can't make it through the day. You're going to hurt. You're going to just don't do too much of anything right now because your mind, you're numb. And when you get ready to reach out to someone that has been through it. It's not going to be easy to find someone or reach out for your advocates. But right now, my advice for them for this week, just love on each other.
And Pam, if this family or any family wants to reach out to you for either advice on dealing with grief or dealing with the justice system, how can they get in touch with you?
They can, on Facebook, I have Pam Hill, and in parentheses it says Pie Pie because that's my nickname. Or they can reach me at...
For your family, by the way, for your nieces and nephews, Pie Pie. Yeah,
that's my nickname that they gave me. Biz gave me that nickname. They can reach me there or messenger me there, or they can reach me at my email, which is PamelaHillYah@AOL.com.
And yeah is YEAH?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. My sisters tease me because they're like AOL's for old people. Well, hey, that's my email.
Wow. Well, this is a case we're definitely going to continue to follow. And I am anxious to see what his plea will be. It's very fresh. Again, just happened April 6th. But it was shocking and horrifying that another beautiful woman, the life was taken so abruptly and suddenly. And it's tragic for him, too, because he's going to have to continue to live with what he's done if he even recognizes what he's done.
And she was a little teacher. I think she's a second grade teacher, and everybody loved her, and they said she was the light of the room. And I do just want to say our condolences and deepest sympathies, and anything we can do for the Espinoza family, just get in touch with me or Molly.
Absolutely. Well, Pam, thank you so much for breaking down this case with us and talking about it. And I'm absolutely just devastated that this has happened to another family, but we'll continue to follow it and we'll bring you the latest details, our viewer. And we appreciate you checking in with us for this latest episode of Gulf Coast Confidential, Mom Killer 2.0. Florida pre-med student stabs mom to death. And we'll see you next time on Gulf Coast Confidential. I'm your host, writer, and producer, Molly Barrows, with co-host and researcher, Pam Hill. And always thanks to director, editor, and production engineer, James Roy. And remember, you can listen to more of our episodes of Gulf Coast Confidential wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, as well as on our YouTube channel. Just don't forget to like and subscribe, please. It's free and it won't hurt.